Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, Mr. Fred Ryan.
Thanks for joining us. I think she's seated the second row there.
Please welcome to the stage, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, Mr. Fred Ryan.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to the Reagan Institute, the Reagan Foundation's home here in the nation's capital. We're so happy to have all of you here with us today for this really fun event that we've been looking forward to. Early in his administration, back in 1983, President Reagan hosted Soccer All-Stars at the White House. It was members of Team America. And to introduce the event, he explained, a quote, "Soccer, as you know, is a worldwide sport and has been increasing in popularity here in America just by leaps and bounds in the past few years." Well, that certainly gives you a sense of perspective of how far and how fast popularity of soccer has grown these last few decades, because it's not necessary to explain the popularity of soccer to anybody these days. But today we're gathered here in advance of the World Cup draw taking place here in Washington, D.C., where Mexico, the United States, and Canada prepare to host the 2026 World Cup. The World Cup and soccer itself are important not just because they're popular. They matter because they bring the nations of the world together, even in times of conflict, war, political, economic. We find a way to put aside differences for civil competition on the soccer field. Well, mostly civil, I'll say. Promoting civility is part of our mission here at the Reagan Institute. In fact, we launched the Center on Civility and Democracy to highlight how working together strengthens our communities and institutions. And that's where our Common Ground Forum series comes in. And we're delighted that the founding underwriter and lead sponsor, Marcia Carlucci, is with us today. Thank you, Marcia. The Common Ground Forum series was inspired by President Reagan's willingness to work across the aisle with Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill and others to achieve meaningful and lasting progress for the American people. The series is about bringing together leading voices with different points of view with a focus on modeling and advancing civil dialogue and solutions. And as divided and polarized as our society is today, we found sports to be a great unifier, a place where people of completely different political views come together and cheer for the same team. And on the field, we applaud our athletes for demonstrating good sportsmanship, a respect for their opponents, and a commitment to honor the rules of the game, something we hope can be an example for our political leaders and across our society. And in that spirit, our Better Rivals initiative with the Rose Bowl Institute launching next year will use sports as a means of improving how Americans approach civic life. So with the entire soccer world focused on Washington, D.C., we want to take this opportunity in today's conversation to remind the world of the enduring connection between sports and democracy, competition and civility, and the opportunity to lead and be respectful on and off the field. The ambassadors, government officials, and athletes who have joined us today are well equipped to make that case. And so is our first speaker. In fact, one of the biggest soccer fans I know, and a good friend of the Reagan Institute. Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, as a former businessman and ambassador, understands well that competition and cooperation can and should go hand in hand. They make better communities and better societies. And that's the kind of leadership he deployed to bring Major League Soccer to Nashville, Tennessee. So who better to kick us off? But please welcome Senator Bill Hagerty.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great honor to be here with all of you today. And, you know, I think about the history of this, what transpired back in 1988 when President Reagan led the vote to bring the World Cup to America for the first time. In 1994, the World Cup arrived, and we set attendance records that have yet to be beat. We still maintain the highest attendance record for a World Cup in history with that event. I look forward to seeing if we can't break that in 2016. I thought I might share with you why this is so personal to me. I couldn't be more excited than to have this happen here in America. It's just a tremendous privilege to see this manifest itself. My interest in soccer goes back a long way. But some of you may not know this. I actually led the organizing committee to bring a Major League Soccer team to my home state capital of Nashville, Tennessee. Back in May of 2016, I remember going to visit MLS headquarters. And at that point in time, there was a competition for the next 4 expansion franchises, number 25, 26, 27, and 28. And there were 12 teams, 12 cities that were already ahead of us in line. The people at MLS were very polite to me and wished me the best. They said they'd heard a lot of great things about Nashville, but had never been there. I said, well, I'd like to have you come, and we're going to be ready. We put together a tremendous organizing committee. I think our state showed its very best. And through a long process, by December of 2017, Nashville leapt over every one of those other 12 competitors, and in fact took the 24th spot because Miami had not quite finished their bid, and we became the 24th member of the Major League Soccer organization. We're now at 30 franchises and continuing to grow, and the enthusiasm is enormous. To see that happen in my home city, in my home state, wonderful. And I can tell you we're looking forward to seeing the results of the draw here this week, because if things work out, I'm very hopeful that Japan may make Nashville its home as they prepare for and compete. It depends on where they draw, but would love to see them there. Why Japan? Well, that's the next part of my personal story. I was serving as United States ambassador to Japan when the period came to compete for the 2026 World Cup. And there was a lot of pressure on this, a lot of geopolitical pressure. What do I mean by that? China was pushing Morocco very, very hard. Of course, we wanted to see this take place in North America. I reached out to our ambassadors from Canada and from Mexico. They joined me at the U.S. ambassador's residence, and we invited the head of the J-League, the Japan League, to come and visit. Earlier, Don Garber, the president of MLS, and Carlos Cordeiro, who was president of the U.S. League here, had both come out to see me to talk to me about the importance of getting Japan on board, because if we could get Japan on board, that would turn the tide throughout Asia. It would make a difference diplomatically, standing up for America and her allies. And it would send a strong message to China, too, that coercion doesn't work in the sports field, just like it shouldn't work in economic and other arenas. It was a long discussion, a fruitful discussion, and I got a call later that night from the Japanese government saying, you have our vote. And with that, we knew we were going to win this bid. So it's wonderful to see it all come together here. Again, I'm looking forward to a wonderful sporting event, but I'd also like to underscore the diplomatic importance of this. It was a diplomatic win to bring the event here to North America. It's a diplomatic opportunity to see three nations cooperate: Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We're honored today to have our ambassadors from Canada and Mexico, both good friends of mine here, and you'll hear from them a little bit later. But to see the three nations working together in such a fruitful endeavor, one that's going to bring economic opportunity, great sporting spirit, and frankly, will lift the spirits of everyone around the world who participates. So it's been a great honor to help open this today and let you know how thrilled I am to see one of the great events in the world taking place again right here in North America. Thank you, and may God bless. Thanks, Fred.
Thanks for joining us.
Certainly.
Thank you, Senator Hagerty. It's great to have you here at the Reagan Institute. We look forward to your next visit.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, it's now my pleasure to introduce our first panel. It features special guests who are integral to the success of World Cup 2026. The Honorable Andrew Giuliani has served at the senior levels of American government as Special Assistant to the President, and earlier this year, the President appointed him to the Executive Director of the White House Task Force on the FIFA World Cup 2026. Ambassador Esteban Moctezuma Barragán was appointed Ambassador of Mexico to the United States in 2021 by President Obrador and was ratified by the Mexican Senate with near unanimous consent. Ambassador Kirsten Hillman has been serving as the Ambassador of Canada to the United States since 2020. The first woman appointed to this position, Ambassador Hillman has stewarded the bilateral relationship through 3 administrations. And our moderator, Travis Parker, is CEO of Center Circle Sport, a DC-based agency that organizes sports diplomacy trainings and programs for teams, governments, and businesses. Please welcome them. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you. Thanks, you, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Travis.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Fred, for introducing us. Thank you, Mr. Giuliani, Ambassador Moctezuma, Ambassador Hillman, for sharing the stage and talking about the phrase of the year, sports diplomacy. I think everybody's inboxes have been blowing up this week with invitations to events, various newsletters, things that people want you to know about sports as a diplomatic tool, about how we as international powerhouses can work together to show off the greater power sports possesses, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And we've got quite the pipeline of sporting events coming our way, most notably, of course, the 2026 Men's FIFA World Cup. Now, this is not the first major sporting event that has been co-hosted by different nations. The 2002 World Cup was co-hosted by South Korea and Japan. The 2020 Euros was co-hosted by a plethora of different European nations. That's just soccer alone. But I think I speak in obvious terms when I say this is easily the biggest one, the most important one. Never has there been a large event like this that has been organized by 3 powerhouse prominent countries as the United States, Mexico, and Canada. There's a huge spotlight here, and with a huge spotlight also comes an opportunity to shine, as I said, both on the field and off the field as well. In international collaboration, in domestic gain, in people-to-people connections. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next about 30 minutes or so. So I want to start big picture here, and I'd like to start at the end of the line here with Ambassador Hillman, but then come down and hear from each of you on this question. Kind of starting broad, international, what are the biggest global opportunities that you see this World Cup presenting Canada and presenting the 3 of you together? Is it foreign relationships? Is it international prominence? Is it being seen as a great host nation or something different? Ambassador, if you could start.
Well, thanks. And also, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you to the Reagan Center. Canada may not be thought of first and foremost as a soccer country. There may be another sport that people associate with us. But I would say it is becoming the most popular sport for the broadest range of people. And so this is going to be really quite remarkable for both of our teams, which we feel are very good and doing very well, but also for our whole country. So thanks for having me and allowing us to highlight this. I think to answer your question, I think about the World Cup in particular as a sporting event, which is a sporting event with an incredibly diverse fan base, the whole world essentially, coming together in this particular instance to 3 different countries, which are also diverse in their cultures and in their expressions of sportsmanship. And for Canada, the 2 cities that we have hosting the events, Vancouver and Toronto, are 2 cities where more than 40% of the people that live in each of those cities were not born in Canada. So these are extremely diverse cities with all sorts of people coming from all sorts of backgrounds. So if I was to say there's a macro theme from my perspective of this particular sporting event and as it relates to us, it's we are a very diverse world. We are a very diverse continent that is in a deep partnership. And in our 2 cities that are hosts, they are very diverse cities, but that are also working together to put on the best possible fan experience for everyone who shows up. And I think that that's an analogy of sport, right? Sport is about diversity, it's about a bit of tension, but it's also about coming together to celebrate something that everybody loves and enjoys.
Thank you very much. And while Canada might see another sport as its primary sport, your men's soccer team has been outstanding lately in kicking the butts of both
and
America
our ladies
and
aren't doing too bad either.
Not too bad either. Just saying.
Women are women.
Look out, hockey. Soccer's coming. Ambassador Moctezuma, what does Mexico see as global potential from this World Cup? What are you looking at in the future as, oh man, we really might be able to shine from this?
Well, when you speak about Mexico, the US, and Canada, you cannot think about North America. And I think that North America as a region, it's doing great in commerce. If you put the 3 countries together, we produce 30% of the GDP of the world, 500 million people. And I think that also gathering together to organize this incredible sport, which I think is the most important sport in the world, it's a very important issue for North America. So the world sees us as a region. And the other thing is that every time I travel and I speak with locals, everywhere in the world, what they say about Mexico is, I remember in the World Cup of 1986, I remember in the World Cup of 1970, because we have organized 3 World Cups. So it's really a reference for most of the people, and that is also awesome.
Mexico is the authority figure of hosting World Cups up on this stage. This will be your 3rd. This is America's 2nd. Canada, welcome to the party, might I say. Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to be there.
Mr. Giuliani, from an American perspective, most of the people in the room are probably Americans. What do you see this World Cup bringing to America from an international macro point of view?
Yeah, well, thank you, Travis, and Ambassador. It's great to be with you here to really start off what's going to be, I look at as World Cup year. Come December 5th, when Canada, the United States, Mexico, we've known for the longest that we'll be in the tournament, but who we're going to play, who's going to come to all these incredible 16 great North American cities, it's going to be very exciting. And for me, let me just also say it's very exciting to be with the Ronald Reagan Institute. My father had the opportunity to work 8 years under President Reagan in the Justice Department, and I know was on the board of the museum. Actually, it was the last place where I got to take my grandfather, who was 25 years in the Navy, a lieutenant commander. So the Reagan Institute and certainly President Reagan has a great place in my heart. The way that I look at this is, look, there is never been a World Cup. There's never been a sporting event where the entire continent, an entire continent, has bonded together to be able to host such an incredible event. I may sound a little bit like my boss, President Trump, when I say this is going to be the largest sporting event in human history, but This is going to be the largest sporting event in human history. 104 games. First time you've had 48 teams qualify. I remember it was only 32. The incredible statistic about what Senator Hagerty said last time, setting attendance records. There were only 24 teams at that point, and the U.S. set the attendance record. So I look forward to that record being shattered. One of the things that we were happy to announce in the Oval Office a couple weeks ago was the FIFA prioritized appointment scheduling system to give priority to ticket holders that want to be able to come into the game, so that way they can get an appointment to be able to come here to the United States. And the State Department outside of that has worked to reduce visa wait times in, I think the statistic, as I saw it this morning, was over 80% of the world that is seeking a visa can get a visa appointment in less than 60 days. Incredible strides just in the last 18 months to 2 years. So I think we're prepared. We're ready. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to show off kind of how three unique countries can bond together to set up such a great sporting event, while also, from an American perspective, we get the opportunity to host this over our 250th birthday. I mean, it is a great opportunity, at least from the American perspective, to show off, I think, American exceptionalism, when you think about Ronald Reagan, right? American exceptionalism over our first 250 years, and the greatness and promise and hope of our next 250 years.
A phenomenal segue, because literally my next question was going to be, well, all right, instead of just looking broadly, macro, sharing the stage with three folks, how can you look at this from a domestic gain? Well, it's America's 250th birthday. That's an easy spot to start. But also, when the World Cup happens in your backyard, you get millions of new people suddenly coming. You've got people visiting businesses that have never seen such exposure, young kids experiencing and brushing shoulders with different cultures that they've never interacted with before. Mr. Giuliani, kind of to continue that, and maybe the answer is America 250, but what would you see as the best potential for the United States to see as a domestic gain from this World Cup?
Well, no pressure on Coach Pochettino, but the U.S. has to win, right? That's it. Now, I'm a dreamer over here, obviously, as you can tell. Well, as we took on this role in my initial conversations with President Trump about this, he urged me to look beyond the 16 North American and 11 American host cities that are going to be hosting games. Obviously, that's where you'll have so many of the great openers, whether it's the opening of the tournament in Mexico City, the great games that will be played in Vancouver, to the final that's going to be played in New Jersey, in the Meadowlands. Looking at the 49 base camps, yeah, there's one for the referees. We got to make sure the referees are taken care of too. I hope the refs are in the U.S. because then we can try to take care of them and make sure they give us some good calls. No, I don't think that's in the sportsmanship. We're not going to do that. Don't worry about it.
Touch on that one later.
But you think about the opportunity for some of these cities as these teams get drawn to either Boston or Monterey or Toronto being their initial games. They're going to decide that maybe their base camp is going to be based out of Nashville, Tennessee, or maybe it's going to be Providence, Rhode Island, or Boise, Idaho, if it's in the United States of America. And what kind of an opportunity would that be if, let's say, a Brazil or an Argentina, a real soccer enthusiastic nation, Japan, right? You can go on and on down the list, potentially ends up basing in this city for 45 days, 2 months, depending how long they go into the tournament. So one of the things we're focused on in the task force as we see this draw, as we see over the next 6 weeks how different countries select their base camp city, is we want to make sure that we're working with the Chamber of Commerce in each of those cities, working with the Small Business Administration in each of those cities, so that way they can maximize the economic opportunity of this really once-in-a-lifetime well, maybe a few times in a lifetime. It was my lifetime in '94. I'm hoping we could do this again so well that they're like, hey, take one of the next couple of games.
Take once in a generation opportunity,
well
maybe
said.
Something like that. Ambassador Hillman, same question, other than hopefully landing the referee camp so that you can get them on your side, or having the Canadian team lift the trophy on American soil at MetLife Stadium. What do you see as the kind of the best opportunity for Canada, specifically Canada in this? Is it also the ability to show off, like Mr. Giuliani just said, to other soccer prominent nations, that you too are one, and to expose your businesses to global industry, or is it something different?
Well, I think all those things are true, but I'd also like to take it local.
Yeah.
Because these opportunities are happening in specific cities. Those cities, as we know from hosting Olympics in our cities, those cities end up getting a lot of attention on their infrastructure, their sports infrastructure, which has a long legacy, right, for young people in sports in those cities thereafter. There's also the whole reality of bringing people from all over the world to your country, to specific cities, generates jobs, generates all sorts of excitement around our country, not just for those folks who come, but I think one of our objectives is going to be to set up events and opportunities in those two cities to showcase other parts of the country. So people can say, oh, I'm really enjoying Vancouver. It's fantastic. Maybe I should try Banff, or maybe I should try Montreal. So we're going to try and just create a bit of energy around tourism for probably a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise have visited Canada. You know, there's a lot of people traveling from all over the world. And so that's a really important feature for us. And then I would like to say I volunteered when I was younger at the Calgary Winter Olympics. And it was a terrific experience. There were groups of young people, not just Canadians, but from many participating countries. And we were like gophers. We were running around doing whatever had to be done for whatever had to be done. But it was extraordinary. Like, I just found it to be such an interesting, eye-opening experience of meeting a lot of young people from all over the world in the context of, yes, working really hard, but also having an awful lot of fun and celebrating sport. So, you know, I look forward to that for our young people from all three nations.
The tourism part is something I think a lot of fans don't think about at first. They're like, I'm going to go to a soccer game.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that there is some proactivity happening that can channel people to different destinations that might not have originally been on their itinerary. And I think it's honestly kind of untapped potential across all three countries, the idea of sports as a touristic vehicle. Ambassador Moctezuma, same question. Obviously, Mexico has a deep, deep soccer history, tradition. And some of the games between Mexico and the United States have been, honestly, some of the most fun I've ever watched. Other than the Mexican men's national team winning the World Cup, what would you see being the best kind of domestic gain that your nation can get out of this World Cup? Is it also tourism? Is it also showing off your country to other soccer-rabid countries, or something else?
Well, mainly what we have thought about is, you see, the World Cup is like a lightning. It's very powerful, but it's brief. And so you have the experience and everybody's excited, and suddenly it's gone. So what we are thinking about is the day after, precisely what's going to happen after the World Cup. And we have organized something that is called the Social World Cup, which means that we want in the educational system to teach children values of teamwork and fair play. So during the World Cup, there is going to be many activities in the schools around football in order to point out the importance of fair game and teamwork. Also, there's going to be a lot of championships all around the nation to promote a healthy life. A healthy life, which means to have to practice sports, not to use any kind of drugs or something, to eat well, to know what to eat in order to not to have problems with your nutrition, and that is something that is also going to be enforced in a school level and with the health ministry. And they will focus also in the importance of muscle mass building, how much muscle you need in order to be healthier, and things like not smoking and so on. So that's what we call the Social World Cup.
The Social World Cup, this idea that this impact of this huge sporting event doesn't just get blown away, as you said, or come hit like lightning, light everything up, and then suddenly everything's dead afterward. No, you want actual life to blossom from this. That's
to use the momentum.
Yeah. All right, that's very cool. That's more of a social project even than just industry or tourism and stuff like that. I like that as well. 3 very different answers, but also coming from kind of a similar standpoint. I'm now going to turn to a less fun topic, which is the challenges that obviously come when 3 huge nations organize the largest sporting event in history. We would be fools to think it's all hunky-dory, that everything's going great, there's nothing but opportunities. No, there are going to be bumps and hiccups along the way. You've got security projects to manage. You've got stadiums to spiff up. You've got people to schlep between countries. You've got teams to get from A to B. You've got so many fan zones to build and so many kegs of Molson and Budweiser and Modelo to order. Soccer fans will drink. I'm curious, in all honesty, about what the biggest hurdles are that you have encountered thus far. Mr. Giuliani, perhaps we can start with you. Your task force it obviously works very close to the Department of Homeland Security. I would assume security is one of the biggest tasks on this task force. Is that the biggest hurdle that you see the World Cup presenting, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think that really is the key. You know, when you think about how wouldn't this World Cup be successful, right? Well, if there's a security incident, right? You go back and think about maybe an Olympic Games where a security incident has happened, and then you think about where that had happened in the past. They weren't necessarily at the stadiums. Maybe at what would be considered the fan fest or the hotels. And that gives you an idea of actually the scope of this when you're talking about protecting the entire country, the entire continent from this perspective. So as we were sworn in, and depending on how you look at it, in late April or early May, what we decided to utilize was the 2 tournaments that were coming up this last summer, in 2025, the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup, to be able to go and look at how each of the state and locals are operating in running their stadium. Understanding that the Club World Cup, much different than the World Cup. The World Cup is truly a unique event. It really is like a Super Bowl when you actually look at the security protocols. Looking at everything from vehicle ramming, as we've seen, that's been a copycat issue, whether it be in New Orleans and what we saw on New Year's last year, going back to we saw that in London happen at one of the outside of one of the Premier League stadiums. I know recently as well to what happened in Copa America back in 2024 when you had spectators that did not have seats actually try to rush the gates. So in working with our state and local partners, we've created federal coordination teams, so that way they have a direct umbilical cord to the federal government, to the White House task force. So then that way we're working directly with the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, FBI, Department of State. So then that way we're able to actually look and say, okay, well, what holes need to be plugged in Boston, in Seattle, in New Jersey, New York, because it's a Megillah, and that's going to continue on once we have these base camps. We actually have a federal liaison officer going out to each of these base camp cities so we can work to prevent what we talked about before, which is potentially an incident happening at one of the team hotels or something like that. So it is a lot. We need to really rely on the expertise of our state and local partners in law enforcement, but it's also on us to make sure that we are communicating to our state and local partners and with our state and local partners. That way, if they're seeing something in Boston that can help a team base camp in Providence, Rhode Island, let's say, as they go to Providence, Rhode Island, or as they go to their next game in Toronto, we can have the communication necessary with our neighbors to the north. So then that way we can actually see, okay, from a full perspective, from a country, from a continent-wide perspective, where are we vulnerable, what are we seeing that could ultimately affect games here, there, base camps here, there. So I would say more than anything, it's trying to make sure that the 11 host cities in the United States, that they are prepared for the games, for the hotels, for the fan fest from a security perspective, but also the 49 base camps and their lead law enforcement is prepared for the rush of, like I said, a Brazil or an Argentina where you'll have hundreds of thousands of Brazilians or Argentinians or maybe French that come into the area when they might not normally be used to that.
Well, and I think you just touched on something that I'm sure a lot of folks are interested in, which is kind of the cross-border communication about these security concerns. Ambassador Hillman or Mr. Giuliani, feel free to hop in, but I am kind of curious, speaking a bit more about that. Obviously, you're focused on your domestic cities down to state and local level, but also, as you just mentioned, well, you're also looking out for the World Cup at large. There's a lot of information sharing that's probably happening here. Is this one of the biggest obstacles, or actually is it something that you've kind of seen as being a great almost exercise in cross-country collaboration, or are there other obstacles that we haven't yet experienced?
Well, actually, you were talking a minute ago about, Andrew was talking about visas and processing visas in a timely way. And each of our countries has our own procedures. We also have our own standards. We process visas based on our own domestic law. But we also want a fan experience where fans can move between the three countries to go to different games. We want it to feel like a community of countries that they're visiting. And that is going to require a fair bit of coordination. So for sure there's federal, municipal, local, we all have that. And that's never a lot of fun, quite honestly, trying to manage all of that. We all have that within our own countries. But as between the three of us, we also want a smooth experience between the three countries while respecting each other's sovereign decisions about visa policy, which we have to and will, of course. So that's been something we've been talking about. And I think the good thing about North America is that there is already a lot of travel between our three countries. And so our officials who are responsible for these things, they know each other. These people responsible for these policies have connections with each other. But that's an obstacle, and it's going to take a lot of work to make sure that from the fan side, it's seamless and pleasant and enjoyable and doesn't get in the way of enjoyment, just as obviously security is job one for all of us.
I'm sure. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with the ambassador said. I think one thing, just kind of taking a little bit of different direction, but talking about kind of how we've worked together from a security standpoint. Mexico hosted the first counter-UAS trilateral meeting between the United States, Mexico, and Canada back in July. I was honored to go down there. I know there's been major progress from a counter-UAS perspective working amongst the three countries, and also we're working on some issues here as well. I actually will see Senator Hagerty tomorrow up on the Hill to try to work out some of the legislation piece of this. I know the FBI has created a schoolhouse where the state and locals can actually get trained on this. There's a deputization piece from the Department of Justice. So, from the U.S.'s perspective alone, if this was just a U.S. event, it'd be very complicated from a counter-UAS perspective in terms of getting authorities to mitigate. When you add then the fact that it's three countries, three different laws, it's even more complicated. But the fact that we're able to work on this, a year out. I'd love to have 3 years, to be perfectly honest, now that I think about it. But a year out is very good.
And it is slightly different, Ambassador Hillman. You mentioned kind of the idea of traveling between countries. Well, yeah, you have to cross borders.
Right.
The 2020 Euros was unique. It happened technically in 2021 because of COVID, but it took place in the EU, where once you landed in one country, you can travel between different countries. Well, that's a very unique set right there. So this is truly one of the world's great sporting experiences that you guys are truly on the front lines for. It's fun to watch. Ambassador Moctezuma, you're the authority figure here when it comes to hosting World Cups. As I said, this will be the third in your back pocket. You probably know that this isn't just a breeze. Are there any issues that you have foreseen or that Mexico has encountered or ones that you see coming, maybe that we haven't discussed yet? Is it when the teams arrive, or is everything actually already been covered in terms of issues?
Well, for us, I think that the most important challenge is to beat the U.S. while we're negotiating the USMCA review. That would be very, very bad for us. No, seriously, I think that we know how to coordinate each other. We started already, and of course, security. I agree with Mr. Giuliani and with the ambassador is the most important challenge. Also visas, and the most important thing is that anything that happens in one of the three countries will affect the image of the World Cup. So we rely on each other in order to have the greatest World Cup and the most important event in human kind. But we have to work in a way that the three countries deliver and puts everything set for that to be.
I think it also goes without saying, maybe it doesn't go without saying actually, that the next World Cup is also hosted by three countries, Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. And so you're almost setting an example right now. You're going to hand the keys off and say, hey, this worked, this didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. So there is actually a lot of learning taking place right now that might be passed down to other nations who might call you up and ask for a reference at some point, if you will. I want to steer the conversation away from cross-border collaboration to the power of sport, to this idea that Fred Ryan introduced at the beginning of this about good rivals, that sport can foster great competition on the field, that it can help athletes strive for excellence, and that it can also foster respect against the people that you play against. At the same time, it's a super slippery slope between that and fostering hatred. You see a lot of fans in the stands chanting things that I don't want to repeat. You see a lot of fights breaking out on streets. You see a lot of abuse on social media. You see players getting at it. But this idea that sports can represent something greater, can represent playing by the rules, can represent being a civic idol or an example in your society is something that I know is very key to the Reagan Institute's goal with this program, with the Rose Bowl Institute. And Ambassador Hillman, if you don't mind, I'd love your take on this and then to come down the line here. Kind of from your leadership standpoint, as an official representing Canada, how can your nation best encourage competition on the field, but also respect off of it? Understand that we as fans are hyping up. We are so excited to watch teams physically defeat other teams. It's kind of an unfair moment, pumped with adrenaline, pumped with money, pumped with millions of people watching. But also, if a player does something despicable, they're scorned. How can you, as an official, help transmit a message that sports can stand for something greater than just a 1-0 victory of Canada against Mexico? That it's something that maybe young kids can watch and take, say, I saw that, that was a good moment of sportsmanship. Is there something that you can help do, or is it more to the athletes, or can you give us some insight into this?
Okay. So I'm going to answer this question by relaying an anecdote. I'm going to answer this question after relaying an anecdote. For the 2010 World Cup, my husband and I were visiting Barcelona. And the final was Spain and the Netherlands. And we went to a local pub to watch the game. And that pub, had televisions on the wall. It got more and more full as the night went on, to the point where people were pushing their faces literally up against the glass of the pub because there was no more room in the pub for people to sit or stand. There was a man outside who asked the waiter to come in and ask if we wouldn't mind letting his little son sit beside us. We were sitting on like a bench seat, so he could watch from inside because his feet were sore from standing and pressing his nose against the glass. It was a magical night. It was a magical night, and for those who don't remember this, it ended in extra time with a 1-0 for Spain. And it was like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. When that happened, as you can imagine, the doors like burst open. People just filled the streets. And this is what I remember, and I think about it often. So first of all, those streets were full of all kinds of people. Grandmothers with their canes, small little children, lots of revelers who had been in pubs drinking lots of sangria or whatever it was. But lots of people from all different kinds of, demographics and all ages. And a lot of Dutch fans wearing their orange jerseys. And what I saw were, first of all, no children getting trampled, grannies getting helped across the street, even though it was this huge rush of happiness and sort of enthusiasm. But also a whole bunch of Barcelonians, if that's how you say it, with their arms around their Dutch friends, laughing and hugging and smiling and, reveling in this. And my husband and I really remarked on this because we thought, not what we would have expected necessarily. The level of friendliness, but also just sort of civic behavior that made it a safe place for everybody in the street. It was delightful. So, to your question about what we can do, I don't think you get to that place in the streets of Barcelona that night. I think you get to having that environment in the streets of Barcelona because what you have done to the lead up of that night. By emphasizing sportsmanship, by emphasizing civility, by emphasizing grace with the people around you, by doing it through, yes, leaders, political or otherwise, but our athletes, right? Our athletes are role models for our kids and our communities. It's also they who bring us to that moment, the leadership of organizations. So I would say it starts now. We have hopefully it's already started, but we have a year. And it's a year in which, for me anyway, for my country, and I'm sure I can speak for all of us, to say that's what we want to foster. We want to foster the streets of Barcelona at 1 a.m. in 2010. That's that's my goal anyway.
Anecdote. Foster Barcelona 2010. I'm sure those Dutch fans were thrilled to have people hanging on them. That said, though, that spirit of good sportsmanship,
buying them beers and they're it was a
they
good
made it
batch.
that far. Arjen Robben should have shot the ball. He didn't, and therefore wound up with a jockey goal. I remember watching that very well. Thank you very much, and I think that rings true, that what you say or the example that's set does matter, and it bleeds into the fans that watch the sport take place. Yeah. Ambassador Moctezuma, you actually already gave a slight hint of the way that this sport can expand beyond the field with your social World Cup. You talked about sportsmanship. What does this mean to Mexico? How can Mexico embody the greater ideals of sportsmanship and treating your opponents with respect, and how can the World Cup help convey this?
I think there is a lot of power in the media in order to promote this kind of behavior. And I remember in the last World Cup, there was a game where Japan played. And after the game, everybody ran out of the stadium but the Japanese. And they started to collect all the garbage around the stadium.
I remember this.
And until the stadium was clean, they left. And I believe they taught us, the world, about how to respect a public place and how to make a public place a public good. So I think that the media, focusing on this kind of behavior, will help a lot in order to promote this kind of conducts that lift us up.
I remember that example so well because I believe Japan had won the game that had preceded that. And you'd expect fans to leave, to go drinking, to go celebrating. No, they stayed and picked up. And we learned a lot about Japanese culture and sports watching culture through that. We'll see. Maybe these stadiums will be spick and span after games. Everybody laughed. Mr. Giuliani, same question. How can sports transcend the field, and what can you do in your position, or how can you see everybody down to Mauricio Pochettino leveraging this from an American perspective?
Yeah. Well, Ambassador, in light of your example, we can see why Senator Hagerty wants the Japanese to come to Nashville. Obviously, it makes sense, you know, so that's obvious it all adds up now. Look, I think, especially when you think of sports over the last maybe 8 to 10 years, there have been points where it's gotten more politicized probably than any other point, at least certainly for me, and I've been following sports since I was a little kid. I loved your example talking about the Calgary Olympics. I remember as an 8-year-old going to the '94 World Cup and having the opportunity to go to 2 games there. And it really encapsulating me in a way that no other, event that I had been to had. I remember the go to a sportsmanship example of Baggio, who was the star of that World Cup. He, scored so many goals throughout it, and then, missed the penalty kick. His teammates were there for him when he missed that penalty kick. And I think that's when we talk about sports, right? The thing that we love so much about it in a world where things are scripted and there are narratives and people are pushing agendas, and I hope that if they're talking about Andrew Giuliani at the end of this World Cup, then we've failed terribly. Something really bad has happened. So hopefully that is not the case. I'm sure my friends would say that, my left over here. But sports is so raw, and I think that's what attracts us at such a young age to it, is that it's about the work ethic we put in. It's the teamwork. where we all get together, we bond together, no matter what our background is, what our religious background, what color we are, what, our political beliefs. We could, be left, we could be right. We put on that jersey, and especially when you talk about the World Cup or an Olympics or something like that, you put on your country's flag, the pride that actually means of those 11 players on the field going toward one goal there. And you hope they win. I hope that example that we're talking about, La Rambla, is going to be in Broadway and other streets here. Pennsylvania Avenue, it's right here. But the thing that we love so much about sports is the fact that it's people coming together on a field for one mission. And in this instance, it's countries coming together to root on their country. And it's a whole world coming together to watch how this incredible event can bring out the best in our 3 host countries and also the 48 countries that are privileged enough to have qualified for this game. So I hope at the end of this World Cup, obviously we'll all be rooting for our individual countries, but whoever it is, I hope that ultimately the team that does lift up that trophy, that they're there to also give a hug to the team that maybe fell just short. You think about the last World Cup, how great Mbappe played, how great France played. Anybody could have won that game. But it was beautiful sportsmanship at the end. I believe it was beautiful sportsmanship.
I believe it was beautiful.
I'm saying that it was. I should remember that part in light of it. But that's really what
I don't have any images of Argentinians draping their arms around local Francophiles, but maybe it did exist somewhere. So this is my final question, and I want a very quick response because then I would like to vacate the stage for the next folks coming up here. But I love to end panels this way by saying, put yourself a year from now. You're handing the keys over to Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. Very quickly, what would you see as a marker that this World Cup was a success? Ambassador Hillman, if you can start.
I would like to see a fan experience where the fans had a joyous experience together from all over the world. And, just to be a diplomat, because that's what I am, grew some understanding by sitting next to someone from a different country, by talking to someone, by having a restaurant meal with someone that they didn't know from a different part of this globe. And there's incremental understanding between some of these fans. And I hope that, and I am most confident that, the bond between our 3 North American partners here will be even stronger a year from now than it is today. And it's already pretty good. So.
Thank you. Ambassador Moctezuma.
Well, I think that for them, for the next 3 countries, to really have a challenge to match the level of these games.
That's good.
So that they would say we have a high bar. Yeah. I think that would be very nice.
Mr. Giuliani.
Echo what they say. I look at it a little bit more from a U.S. legacy perspective, or say a North American legacy perspective. I want people as they leave toward the end of January to go back home to tell an incredible story to their family and friends about how incredible this World Cup was, and that they need to come back next summer for the next great event, or for the Olympics in 2028, or the Women's World Cup in 2031, to talk about, America 250. Maybe they decided to go to all 16 venues, and they've seen, the unique, how different Mexico City is from Boston, Massachusetts, than, Vancouver, Canada. I want them to have an incredible story where they can go back home and tell their friends, tell their family that, you want to come to the United States, you want to come to Canada, you want to come to Mexico, and they're planning their next trip on July 20th because it was the greatest experience of their life.
That's great.
Ambassador Hillman, Ambassador Moctezuma, Mr. Giuliani, thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your work stitching this event together. And might I say, best of luck to all 3 nations.
Thank you. And thank you very much. Thank you.
They would like a photograph if you're all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I welcome Fred Ryan back up, I believe you have asked for a photo. Do you want me in this or no? Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Of course.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Well, it's great to see such enthusiasm among our diplomats and government officials that are simultaneously rivals but on the same team. And I think we should invite them back a year from now, see if they know, if anyone remembers Andrew Giuliani's name, and to see what else other lessons were learned. Well, now we're delighted to hear from Stephanie Williams. She was appointed Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Professional and Cultural Exchanges in August of 2025. She oversees the United States effort to strengthen diplomacy through people-to-people and cultural exchanges. Please welcome Stephanie Williams.
Well, good evening, Canadian Ambassador Hillman, Mexican Ambassador Moctezuma, Senator Haggerty, White House Task Force Executive Director Giuliani, and the many other honored guests here today. And Chairman Ryan, thank you for organizing this important forum and the opportunity to address this distinguished audience as we look ahead to the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup. The tournament will not only be the largest in history, thanks to our partnership with our Canadian and Mexican co-hosts, but it will also be remembered as a defining moment for sports diplomacy. I thank our neighbors to the north and south for their teamwork as we all share the commitment to see this landmark event serve as a platform to deepen international cooperation and build enduring relationships through the shared passion for the beautiful game. To echo what has been already said today about President Trump's bold vision to make the 2026 World Cup the biggest, safest, and most extraordinary tournament in history, coinciding with America's 250th anniversary. For us, this is more than a celebration of sport. It is a celebration of American strength and freedom. The decade of sport in America is underway, and with it, we are elevating American leadership on the global stage, using mega sporting events to showcase our dynamism, world-class hospitality, and sporting excellence, while promoting economic growth and tourism through sport. As we all know, the 2026 World Cup will be hosted in cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, increasing from 32 teams in 2022 to 48 teams in 2026. This collaborative regional platform creates multiple entry points for diplomacy: cross-border fan travel, common infrastructure, cultural exchange, and the sharing of best practices. This trilateral tournament, the first of its kind, shows the world the power of sports as a tool to find and capitalize on common ground. I would like to ask all of you to recall the example set during President Reagan's time when, in 1984, the Los Angeles Olympics became a global celebration of unity, excellence, and free expression, even at the height of the Cold War. Despite a Soviet-led boycott, athletes from 140 nations came together, and the Games sent a clear message. In a free society, sport brings people together and inspires hope across borders. Last month, I had the great honor of delivering remarks at the UN General Assembly, highlighting the power of sports for peace at the adoption of the UN resolution reaffirming the Olympic truce ahead of the 2026 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games in Italy. Their International Olympic Committee President, Kirsty Coventry, emphasized the power of sport to build bridges and break down barriers. Like the Olympics and Paralympics, the World Cup will connect fans, players, and communities, building relationships and understanding across borders. Ahead of the 2026 World Cup, I call on all athletes, citizens, and institutions to uphold the values of civility and fair play. In North America, we know we are a model for global sportsmanship, cooperation, and excellence. Together as a global community, we can make the World Cup a beacon of unity, a celebration of freedom, and a testament to the enduring power of sport to bring the world together. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us today. Our next panel includes those who are at the very heart of the game, representing all three countries. DeJuan Jones is a professional soccer star from the San Jose Earthquakes and has played 10 matches for the United States men's national team. Mike Fonseca is the founder and CEO of the Fonseca Group, a premier sports marketing firm, and recently became co-owner of Querétaro FC, soccer team of Liga Mexico. And Dwayne De Rosario is one of Canada's most decorated soccer players. From 1998 to 2015, he represented Canada on their men's national team, retiring from international play as Canada's all-time leading scorer. He's a member of Canada's Sports Hall of Fame and official ambassador of FIFA's World Cup 2026. And to the point that the ambassadors made earlier about accelerating visa time, Dwayne is at the airport, and he'll be arriving a little bit later into our program. But I would like to ask Travis to come up and start it off with DeJuan and Mike.
Take your chair. All right, yeah, there is an empty seat that will be filled, whether on this panel or at some point throughout this evening, by Canadian legend Dwayne De Rosario. But that said, I think we've got a pretty decent representation up here right now. DeJuan, Mike, thank you so much for joining. We just covered the official viewpoint of what it's like to plan a World Cup between three nations. I want to get a little bit more into the locker room, into the organization, into the field perspective of what it's like to not only participate in this, but just what it's like to play sports in front of so many people or own sports teams. That said, first I'd love to just kind of get a little bit of background from both of you. DeJuan, you've played soccer at just about every level possible in the United States. I'm assuming you played as a kid, you played in high school, you played at college, you played academy, you played professional, you've played national. Kind of just my first question to you is introduce us to what it's like and what have you seen as soccer has grown in America, having played across essentially the entire pyramid?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. And I've played at every level, like you've said, and each and every level, it's always been my love of the game that's continued to help me push further and further in my career. And that's what has me here today. I also would like to say that, yeah, the growth of the game in the U.S., I think that definitely with the MLS academies, that's been a big investment in the MLS academies because that's growing the game through the youth development system. I actually never played in the MLS academy. I just went the high school route, a little less traditional route. These days, the academy is the way to get to the MLS mostly, but I actually went a less traditional route.
So you're seeing a difference in kind of the structure here instead of academy or instead of the high school to college route, which you're right, you don't see as much. You see folks immediately entering the San Jose or DC United academies. So you're on the minority there then. Most people are going through the academy structure, right?
Definitely, and I think that's really a good example just to show that you can make it at any level. You don't have to go the academy route, even though that is the route that most people take. I think it's important that if you really have a love for the game, you can continue to make it at any stage you go.
Gotcha. Mike, you've got a bit of a different view on soccer and on sports in general. You bring kind of the agent perspective, might I say, let alone the sports ownership perspective. You've worked with athletes across different sports, across different borders. What's it like to work in this capacity? Can you give us a bit of a background of the Fonseca Group? Can you give us a bit of a background of what it's like to own a Liga MX team? And what it's like to work so closely with athletes at such a high level?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. This is an honor to be here. So first, I was born in Mexico City to an American mom and a Mexican father. And in the 1986 World Cup, I was a young buck. But I remember it very, very vividly, and it was a pretty powerful moment. And fast forward about 40 years, you can do the math on that, I'm going to be hosting a pretty incredible event 1 mile from MetLife Stadium for 8 World Cup games. So it's a pretty cool full circle moment. But my background is as a sports agent, so I was representing athletes for many, many years. And I love international. I love everything international. I've been fortunate to represent some pretty iconic international figures over the years. And recently, we're a private equity and a sports agency. We bought a very iconic Canadian company called Daewoo. For some of the ambassadors here earlier, Daewoo was established in 1891. I mean, one of the most iconic hockey brands of all time. We just bought the brand, are relaunching it, and obviously leaning heavily into Canadian culture and hockey culture, which is very new to me. And frankly, the soccer opportunity was very unique, and it came to us about a year and a half ago, and I want to give full credit to my partner, who's the GP in the deal again, and Mark Spiegel, who brought me the opportunity. And as a Mexican-American who has lived in the sports business world for 30 years, I right away appreciated and saw the opportunity, right? To me, it wasn't about a Mexican team in Querétaro. It wasn't about a team in Mexico at all. To me, it was about a North American opportunity. I don't see business that has a border between the U.S. I mean, I've been fortunate to represent a guy named Canelo Alvarez, who's a boxer. And a lot of the businesses we look at are North American opportunities. It's not a Mexican opportunity, a U.S. opportunity. And to me, Querétaro we've got 60 million Mexican Americans in the States. We've got 100 and something million in Mexico. And I said, we've got massive fan base. The most watched soccer league in North America, no disrespect, is Liga MX, right? So I've got a lot of fans, especially Mexican American fans. My job is to say, how do we create a connection between our team and Querétaro, which, by the way, was the capital of Mexico, like Philadelphia was, and to the States, and no one knows that story. So we're creating a brand, we're creating a story, and our job is to create a connection between the fans that exist out there in our specific city, our specific team. And at the end of the day, I think it's super exciting because I'm looking at it as I've got 200, 300, 400 million people that are my potential fans. My job is to take the best of what we learned from American sports culture and bring it to a very passionate fan base.
How has the reception been of your acquisition of Querétaro? I can imagine that, yes, from the top perspective, oh my goodness, this is great. We've got exposure to, as you said, not just a Mexican business culture, but a North American network. But also, there are some probably diehard fans who suddenly are like, wait a minute, I don't know who this person is. How have you been able to, and I know it's fairly recent, I believe, how have you been able to kind of warm up the fans or the players even, or at least what are your plans for getting there?
So the league is a 100-year-old league. So Liga MX goes back 100 years. This is not a brand new league that's just emerging. This is an established league. And we are the first, very proudly, the first wholly American-owned franchise in Liga MX history. That's a big deal, right? Yes. We were let in, and I don't know who Mark paid, who he convinced, but we're in. And to me, there's a huge responsibility. And I made sure as part of our group and my group specifically that we were bringing in Americans, we were bringing in Mexicans, and we were bringing in Mexican Americans, right? Because to me, that's a huge, huge opportunity. But we're not going to roll in there as the gringos that know everything and say, hey, this is how we do in America, and, good luck. That's stupid, as we all know. And so the very first thing that we did was, and we're in the middle of the process right now, is to sit down and listen. Listen to the community. I'm going to say some things that may be controversial, so hopefully it doesn't go beyond this. But in Mexico, in the Mexican League, you were allowed to own multiple teams up until very recently, right? So that's why we had the opportunity, is the gentleman that owned our team also owned a team in Tijuana. And the reality is that was his baby, and so our team happened to be sort of the JV version of what he was doing, right? He'd take the best players and bring them to his team, and his worst players, he'd bring them back to our team. And so the opportunity to us was the bar was relatively low. All we needed to do was listen, pay attention, be with the community, meet with the governor, meet with the mayor, and say, hey, what do you guys need? Because you've clearly been overlooked and undervalued for the last 5 or 6 years from this owner. And so to us, it is about the brand and the story, and how do we create a vehicle to celebrate Querétaro, to celebrate Mexican culture, to celebrate the community. And again, I didn't know, and I'm Mexican, I didn't know until 12 months ago that there was actually a soccer team in Querétaro that played at the highest level. That's kind of a problem. And I did not know that Querétaro was the capital of Mexico. Also a big problem, but also huge, huge, huge opportunities. So it's wide open, and to us, we're going to lean into the community. We're going to learn. We're going to celebrate the things that made Querétaro beautiful. And frankly, I think it's a tremendous opportunity that I'm super excited about as a Mexican American.
You've backed your way into a prime sports diplomacy opportunity, is what it is.
Amen.
Using sports as a cultural vehicle, learn a little bit about somebody else, learn a little bit about new histories, maybe share it with a bunch of others who would not have known that Querétaro was once the Philadelphia of Mexico, or Philadelphia was once the Querétaro of the United States. I'm excited to watch this journey. The 12th on the table right now, I saw. Hopefully we can slowly start climbing up.
Just missed the playoffs.
Sorry about that one. Well, it's an early project.
but I may be stealing someone on stage, so maybe they can lead us to the class. That's off the record.
Yeah, if agent conversations start to happen here, I had nothing to do with it, but I did want to foster the dialogue. Dewan, speaking of playing just at the highest level, so many people in this audience can only imagine what it's like to take the field with the United States flag on your crest. Not San Jose, the United States. You've got, I think, 10 caps, right? A couple of assists I saw in there as well. What's it like? What's it like to don the jersey? What's it like to play for your country? Just kind of give us a broad spectrum idea for those of us who could only dream.
Yeah, like you said, it's a childhood dream come true. To play for your country, it's honestly the biggest thing you could ever hope for in your sport. With the World Cup coming next year, it's an amazing opportunity. Coach Pochettino has given a lot of guys opportunities, and I'm really hoping to be on that squad next summer. I think it will be incredible, and the experiences that I have had, it's been special. Like when you walk across that line, my first game, I remember like just chills, instant chills.
For real?
Yeah, playing for your country, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. You feel like you're representing not only yourself, your family, but the whole country. So you play with that extra pride, that extra bite, and you know that whatever you're doing, you're making your country proud, and it's a team that everyone wants to play for. So you're putting yourself up amongst the top 23, 26 players in the whole country. So to have that opportunity, it's been incredible.
But it's also slightly different, if I may say, because you aren't training with these guys every single week. This is not technically your club team. It's your national team. You get the call up, and then somebody else comes in. It's almost intermittent. Is there any different style of play or style of training, or how hard is it actually to take the field with folks that in the MLS you might be playing against every single week?
Definitely. I think Coach Pochettino has done a really good job of simplifying the game for us. He provides us with a really good structure, and then once we get out there, we get to really express ourselves, and I think that's part of the joy of soccer. When you go out there and play, you get to really express yourself. If you're playing basketball, you have to run set plays. Football, especially, you're running set plays, but when you're out there, you get to represent yourself, have fun, be creative, and just bring joy to everyone watching.
All right, and hopefully it's contagious to the other players, because it certainly is to the fans, man. I've watched American soccer games slowly grow more and more and more, men's and women's attendance starting to boom. So no pressure, but obviously when you take the field, there's a ton of pressure at the same time. We'd love to say there isn't, but there has to feel like a little bit of that, as you said, too, because you are representing, not San Jose, you're representing the United States of America.
Absolutely. I mean, every time you take the field, it's a big opportunity. But like you said, there is that pressure. But I think the biggest thing is just to have fun. This is what you've trained your whole life to do. So it's important that you just embrace it, embrace where you are, be where your feet are. And also, just have fun. Because ultimately, when you play your best, or at least when I'm playing my best, I'm having fun.
So you mentioned hoping to make it to the World Cup squad, obviously, and we're rooting for you, as long as Mike doesn't poach you for Liga MX. But I want to home in on the kind of central idea of this event and this discussion of sportsmanship. Now, we're not just looking at a World Cup that's co-hosted by the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We're looking especially at how sports, soccer in particular, can be used to foster competition on the field and also cohesion, whether it be three nations working together, whether it be three nations competing against each other. This concept of being good rivals, as has been echoed, where soccer creates intense competition and hopefully fosters respect and civility. It's easy enough for me, a fan, to say, I'm not in the boardroom meetings. I'm not playing on the field. I'm not in front of millions of people, either watching on TV or tens of thousands in the stadium, who are cheering me on, hoping to watch me physically defeat somebody else. So I want to kind of direct this next part of the conversation to what's that like at a team level? What's it like handling this intensity, this competition, these rivalries, but also trying to maintain a sense of respect and sportsmanship amidst it all? Dewan, I'm going to kick it back to you first. You play for the U.S., but more often than not in MLS, you're playing with people of other nationalities. You're playing against people of other nationalities. There has to be moments when some national pride kicks in. What's it like, and how can you and how can other players you play against both use that as a fuel for passion, but also show restraint to not let it go too far and make it personal, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, when you play at the club level in MLS, you're playing with guys from countries around the world. So it's really cool because you get to meet them and get to know them on a human level. I know there's a lot of stereotypes out there. Oh, the Brazilian player does this, the Argentinian player is like that. but to actually get to know these guys and see that on the human level, like we all just love the game. We're all living our childhood dreams, playing together, playing the game that we love, sharing a locker room, sharing bread, breaking bread, getting to know each other, getting to know each other's families. And it's just really cool to see that like we're really not all that different. So then, yeah, when you step across that line, you're competing. It's competition for sure. But I think it's important after the game, shake hands with the team you just played against. Also respect the referees. Without the referees, there'd be no game.
That idea, though, about the refs, I mean, that's who everybody loves to chide against. It's who we boo more than probably the other team, in all honesty. But the refs are keeping the rules, and everybody knows the rules here. Everybody understands what a good act of sportsmanship is and a bad act of sportsmanship. Are there programs in the MLS or in Liga MX, or can there be programs to really hammer home this idea of sportsmanship, of good conduct, of championing competition, but also at the same time championing respect? Or is it an open space for both of these leagues to truly start expanding into? Duan, if you have any. Otherwise, Mike, I'll turn to you after this.
Yeah, as of right now, I don't think there's necessarily anything like that. I think it is important, like I said, as a humanity, as a person, it's important to respect your opponent. I think if you really love the game, you respect the game, and to respect the game is respect yourself, respect your teammates, respect the team you're playing against, the referees, everyone. So I think it's important that after the game, you shake hands, you say good job if they won, congratulations. If they lost, you still say you played a good game. And I think that goes a long way, especially when, everyone is watching. Social media is so big these days, they see every little thing. So if you're really combative on the field, that's great. But after, if they can see you guys shaking hands, I think that'll go a long way.
Mike, from the owner's perspective, is there much that you can do to help champion sportsmanship? As I said, I know it's new in your acquisition of Querétaro, but is there an idea of, yes, we can use this to benefit communities, local kids playing soccer, watching their idols on TV? If they become bad sports, they might emulate that behavior.
Yeah, I'm going to go to a little story about one of my longtime clients, a guy named George St. Pierre. So Ambassador's not here. We're talking a lot of Canadian stuff today. But George St. Pierre, considered one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. And George famously had a fight against Nick Diaz. And some of you guys know the combat sports. Well, the Diaz brothers are known as the nastiest, dirtiest, smack talking. They get personal, and it's bad, right? And so George is coming back from an injury. I think it was a knee injury, and it's a long fight camp, and it's a lot of time for the Diaz brothers to really get nasty. And it was personal, and even me as the agent, even though I look tough, I'm not very tough. I was ready to go punch these guys, and so of course George, being the great champion that he is, defeats Nick Diaz pretty handily. I mean, embarrassed Nick. And after the words, and again, everyone was very well. George is a class act. He's just a stand-up human being, and Nick and Nate not necessarily as much. And so he's being interviewed afterwards. Nick Diaz is being interviewed by probably Joe Rogan, and the entire. And this is in Montreal, I think it was. So there's 20,000 people that are 99.9% GSP fans. So Nick is talking, and the whole crowd is booing and boo, 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 you're terrible, we hate you. George interrupts the interview, takes the mic and said, everyone, settle down. He was trying to be promoting the fight to feed his family. He's a great champion. He's worked his butt off. He's a good guy. He's a great champion. Like, we're going to turn those boos into cheers. This guy's a great guy, and we need to support him, right? So all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm not a good enough man to do that, by the way. I was like, I wanted to bury these guys. And I think what it does is it represents an opportunity that all of us have, and the players specifically, right? Because you are who the kids look up to, who society looks up to. They don't care about guys like me. And I think that George in that moment stepped up. And granted, George had been bullied as a kid. As a young kid in Montreal when he was 8, 9 years old, been bullied. So he saw the opportunity. Hey, there's 18,000 people bullying this poor guy who clearly was doing things he shouldn't have done, but nevertheless, it's not an excuse to be bullied. And I think that's the opportunity, and I was so proud of George in that moment that I was like, God, this guy is just a better man than me. So I think that's an opportunity.
So the weigh-in, if I can kind of go into the UFC angle here, you described kind of, I think it's called the weigh-in. I don't watch many fights, but I do know the moment when the two guys stare at each other and flex and start trash talking. Yeah. That's catered. That's something that's coordinated. You are supposed to represent yourself. I don't know about insult the other one, but it helps maybe, or it helps fuel the fire. People start to find that interesting. Is that something that, as you said, fans can realize that is actually part of the promotion of the event, or do you see it bleeding into those boos during the post-fight interviews more? And how can other sports avoid the weigh-in mentality but still keep that competitive edge?
I mean, listen, the reality is especially in combat sports, and Canelo's a boxer, and the number of UFC fights I've represented over the years, it's certainly part of the show. It's certainly part of the promotion. You're trying to sell pay-per-view tickets. So the more animosity, the more bad blood there is, the better it is for business, right? So famously, Dana White, is very good at creating those controversies, right? But you take one of the greats, Michael Jordan, right? And you talk about what Michael Jordan used to do to get under people's skins, and the smack talking before is part of the gamesmanship. But my brother used to do it to me all the time. He'd get under my skin, he'd get in my head, right? But it's how you go about that. I think there's a class that Jordan would take, and Jordan wasn't, he wasn't being sweet, but there was a certain, and same with Kobe Bryant. So there's a way to do that, I think goes back to sportsmanship and respecting the game and respecting the rules. And I'd love to hear your perspective, because in soccer, I mean, it gets chippy, right? You guys, I mean, it's not football, but it's pretty close to as violent as football. I mean, you guys are going fast and you're going hard, and it gets violent, and it gets. I mean, I'd love to get your perspective on how heated that gets, and how you guys, because post game with the jersey exchange, I think that's one of the coolest things in sports.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, as soon as the whistle's blown, it's a fist fight for 90 minutes. And I think, again, it's just one of those things when you're competing, and then when the game's over, I think that's when you can shake hands. Certain guys are different. Certain guys, they don't know when to turn it off. They can't really turn it off, so they'll continue it. You play a lot of teams twice, so maybe that second game you can, get your revenge. But again, I think sportsmanship, gamesmanship is also important to talk about, because in the game you have to do certain things, get under the opponent's skin. These things can all help you win the game. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it's still important to have that sportsmanship, because we are role models.
Yeah.
You don't ask to be a role model necessarily, but because of the position that we're in, we are role models, and the youth, they're always watching. So it's important that we show that, yes, we can compete, we can talk junk, but after the game, we'll shake hands, and I'll congratulate you on the win, or congratulate you for the hard-fought game.
I want to stick with this idea of role models and playing by the rules, and taking this to a greater kind of civic discourse. But first, Dewan, who's the most interesting player you've swapped jerseys with after a game? Is there anyone that stands out? Because as Mike said, that is a really cool tradition in soccer that you don't get in many other sports,
Ooh, that's a good question.
You don't have to answer that right now. You can think about it as we continue on.
Let me think.
All right, so sticking with the idea of sports having the set parameter of rules. This was something that was brought up earlier. It's something that we touched on briefly in the first panel. But when you step onto a field, if you handle the ball, it's a free kick to the other team. If you run out of bounds with it, it's a throw. And these are set, understood rules that the referee manages. But outside of sports, you kind of realize that it's unique. There are not exactly the same amount of set parameters of rules that are so strictly abided by. In fact, it's much more of a wide playing field. Do you foresee, or do you see any ways that athletes or team owners and agents can use this idea of playing by the rules to encourage maybe young citizens or young kids to also do the same, to take this idea of, hey, we're playing the same game and we want to be competitive but not disrespectful to the game, to society at large? Mike, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, listen, there's a term that some of us know, punching below the belt, right? And to me, it was set specifically to protect some very valuable assets, mostly that males have. But the reality is what it represents to me is that you're not prepared enough, you're not good enough to compete by the rules. You have to manipulate the rules in order to gain an advantage, right? To me, it shows me the kind of quality athlete or competitor that you are. And, years ago, and I mention him because he's a great American, a war hero, and a very dear friend of mine and client of mine. Tim Kennedy was a former UFC fighter, number 4 ranked fighter in the world. And Army Ranger, Green Beret, Special Forces, sniper, incredible American. And he was fighting a guy named Yoel Romero. And Tim was ranked number 4, Yoel was number 2. So whoever won this fight was going to be fighting for the world championship. Pretty significant fight in Tim's Tim's life. Yoel came in absolutely juiced out of his mind. I've never seen someone more on steroids than in my entire life, right? So everyone knew he was cheating as it was. And he rolls in, and Tim fights an incredible fight, dominates in the first round, dominates in the second round, to the point where Yoel was pretty much knocked out going into the break between the second and the third final round. and it was like he was barely going to survive. It was a foregone conclusion. Well, in MMA, you have 30 seconds between rounds to recover, right? So you're on the stool and you get your water and you get your cuts, everything else. So after the 30 seconds, well, Yoel is in no position. He can barely walk. So his corner trips the stool to buy some time. So we get over and get the stool. Oh, while they're grabbing the stool, the water spills. So now they got to clean up the water. It was that type of stuff. So meanwhile, Tim's like, there's no way, given the rules of the sport, they're going to let this guy continue after the sort of the delay. 2.5 minutes later of these shenanigans, they let the fight continue. Well, meanwhile, Tim's checked out. He's already celebrating. He's like, we won this fight. I'm going to fight for the championship. Well, Yoel comes back, and now he's got 2.5 minutes of rest, and he's pissed. The only way he can win this fight is by knocking Tim Kennedy out. Tim's checked out. So what happens, as you guys can understand, Yoel comes back, knocks out Tim Kennedy, right? And to me, that was one of those moments where you're like, listen, it was unfair. He was on steroids. It was cheating. All this stuff. Like, we lost total trust in the system and in the judges. And like, I was just pissed. And Dana and I had wars afterwards. It was ugly. And I'm going to tie it back to sort of the political environment, because I don't really care what side of the political spectrum you're at. I think that we have gone way below the belt. I think everything's become personal. I think it's been polarizing. And we got to remember, we're Americans first and foremost, right? We have a long history of disagreeing and agreeing and coming to compromise and talking about the things that we're debating, and that's the beauty of this country. And to me, is how do you use sport to bring that back and say, guys and girls, how do we communicate better? How do we disagree better, more respectfully, and how do we compromise and find commonalities? Because that's how we're going to get ahead in life as Americans and as a global society. And so, to me, I think there's things that all of us can learn, whether we're politicians or diplomats or whatever, about, hey, let's remember the rules, let's play by the rules, and let's hopefully be able to be civil every day.
Dewan, do you have any outstanding examples of yourself breaking a rule, or a bad act of sportsmanship, or a good act of sportsmanship that you encountered at any level that kind of reset the scene for you? Kind of as Mike was just saying, of like, oh man, this matter is different. This isn't just me flopping, to buy my team a little bit of time. This is about my image or my team's image. And maybe kids that are watching me suddenly will start doing the exact same thing. Oh man, I actually can't go down here. I need to stay up, or something like that. Has there ever been a specific moment that you can think of, or even if there isn't one specific moment, kind of this idea that what you're doing on the field might be translated to what kids are doing that are watching?
Besides when he pants the guy in the middle of the TV, I said that one time. That was very inappropriate.
Now somebody's going to do that as well. I saw Dewan do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. It's just to be gracious in defeat or victory. I would say, going back to last year, and I played for the Columbus Crew, and we won the Leagues Cup. We beat LAFC, and I was really impressed. All of their players were congratulating us. They wanted to win the championship as well. It was a hard-fought match. Could have went either way, but just to see the sportsmanship there, shaking everyone's hand. I think they even did a tunnel for us as well. Gave us a clap, and I was really impressed. I think a lot of guys can be really sore losers, but at the end of the day, we're all competing. Both teams want to win the game. Only one team can win the match, so it's important to still respect yourself, respect your teammates, respect the opposition, and I was really impressed by LAFC that day.
Finally, it goes without saying, but we're having this conversation ahead of the World Cup draw. The big fulcrum here is, well, we all want to talk about different nations playing against each other on the field. This idea that sports, yes, can be a diplomatic tool, but also you are going to pit not just Columbus Crew versus LAFC for the Leagues Cup, but Mexico versus the United States, say. A game that has a heated history. Could happen in the World Cup. We'd be lucky to see it, because that would mean both teams probably make it to the knockout rounds and pretty far. But you have a different perspective when you play in these games than probably we do, watching them. And so this upcoming World Cup is a big old task of 3 nations co-hosting. 2031 Women's World Cup, 4 nations, U.S., Mexico, Jamaica, and Costa Rica. It's going to be no different. We just heard from the officials that are helping plan this, but from the athlete's perspective, how has your time as an international athlete, so playing for the United States or hoping to get on the roster, shaped your view of the power sports have when crossing borders, of playing against different nations, introducing yourself to different nations, maybe picking up, on different tactics or different skills or ways that certain countries play, but also just the countries at large? What does the power of sport as an international competition mean to you?
Yeah, I think it means everything. I mean, when you play against teams and you see their fans come out, you see how much it means. I think sports is the ultimate unifier. I think that's super important that when you're competing, you're representing not only yourself, but you're representing your entire country because everyone's always watching. And again, sports will unify us, but it could also divide us. So I think it's important that we use our opportunity, use our influence for good and not for separation, because I think the world needs to have more love and more unity.
All right, I appreciate that. Yeah. Mike, you have worked with, as you said, athletes across the U.S.-Mexico border. You now own a Liga MX team. Same question. Sports being played across borders matters a little bit different. I'm not going to say more, but matters differently than sports played across city lines or between two clubs. Everybody on the field is from one nation and wears the same flag. What impact do you see that holding?
Listen, the last really 2 years I've spent a tremendous amount of time in Canada and in Mexico and obviously the U.S. And I don't think we've ever seen this kind of tension between those countries. There's a lot of political stuff in Mexico going on and the tariff stuff in Canada, and it affected our businesses, so I felt it and I saw it and it was real, right? And listening to the ambassadors earlier and Mr. Giuliani was pretty cool, because you start to realize and start to think that this is an opportunity for all of us, right? These are three countries that there's political stress going on in real time to say, hey, this is the biggest stage on planet Earth. And the world is watching and the world is paying attention, and we have an ability to choose, are we going to work together or we're going to work against each other? And I think that's an opportunity, and I'm excited about it because I know the answer. The answer is we're going to put together an incredible World Cup. Everyone's going to come away better for it, and there's going to be a lot of resolution to a lot of the potential stress that was between our countries. So I'm excited about that, and I know that all three countries are going to be representative of that position.
So as my final question here then, same as the one that I ended the last panel with. Put yourself a year from now, you're looking as maybe the sports owner or fan perspective, maybe the player, maybe you're on the roster. What would you see as being a success marker of this World Cup? Mike, if you don't mind, I'll start.
For me, is the gentleman to the right of me is going to be playing for the Querétaro Gallos Blancos. We will have won our first championship in 18 years. And you think I'm joking. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I would say continued growth of the game. I think there's been a great build-up. I actually played in the 2023 Gold Cup, and I think there was coverage of it, but it kind of stayed within the soccer sphere. But in 2025, this year's Gold Cup this summer, there was so much coverage. We had guys doing interviews on ESPN with Pat McAfee, and it was just incredible to see how much growth, how much the game has grown just in the past few years. So I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be a nice catapult, trampoline. We'll just continue to grow soccer in the U.S., and I think it's going to be the best for us and for all the future generations to come.
Mike, Duan, thank you so much for sharing your unique perspectives. Best of luck with Querétaro.
Thank you.
Best of luck making the U.S. MNT roster.
Sir.
And I dearly hope that this World Cup is going to be a joy for everyone and hopefully a literal success for both of you.
Awesome.
Cheers. I think we want a photograph. I think we got a photograph up here. All right, thanks. Do you want me to stay on stage or no?
I was just going to say we'll take a couple minute break and then pick up.
All right, sounds
Maybe
good.
we could have you kind of Dwayne Rosario for a little.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Dwayne. Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Well, Dwayne De Rosario should be here momentarily. We're going to take a brief break, then 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll resume with Dwayne, and we'll have a final conversation to end with two of the superstars of soccer to have a little fireside chat. So we're going to pick up in 2 or 3 minutes with that. So stand up for a 6th inning stretch or 7th inning or second quarter stretch, and then we'll resume. Hey, Ben, I wanted to say hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, Mr. Fred Ryan.
All right, everyone, we are ready for our final segment, and we're going to end strong with some superstars of soccer. So I mentioned earlier, Dwayne De Rosario, legendary soccer player from Canada, is joined with us today. He's with us today. He's Canada's all-time leading scorer. He's a member of the Hall of Fame. He's the official ambassador for FIFA's Men's World Cup 2026, and he proudly just cleared U.S. Customs. So that's a good thing. And we will have he will join in conversation Dominic Badji, professional soccer player with our own hometown, D.C. United. Yes, so happy to have him here. And his life spanning Senegal and the United States is really a testament to the power of soccer as a means of finding common ground. He's an effective advocate and speaker on the importance of sportsmanship and leadership, and we're delighted that he's with us today. And joining us momentarily, he's in the car coming from the airport also, but to be here in 2 or 3 minutes, is Kobe Jones, U.S. men's national team legend. He's the all-time leader in matches played for the United States national team, is a member of the National Soccer Hall of Fame, and a community ambassador for the Los Angeles World Cup 2026 host committee. They will be in conversation with Travis Parker. Please join us on stage.
I'll sit in this one if you take.
Thanks.
All right, thank you for joining. I'm back. 3 for 3. Does Dwayne need to be mic'd up?
I'm mic'd up.
No, then I think you're all right. I'm back 3 for 3. We figured kind of that with Dwayne and Kobe being able to make it, we might make this final panel. This is more of like a fireside chat. Think of it as a live podcast that somehow I wound up on. A little more casual, a little more fun with the idea of let's talk soccer. Let's talk the global impact of soccer. Let's talk about your guys' very different but also very similar histories in terms of the excellence that you have on the field, and kind of sharing with folks who are excited to watch the U.S., to watch Mexico, to watch Canada play in this upcoming World Cup. Dominique, though, I'd like to start with you. And I would love it if you can share, as Fred just alluded to, a little bit of your story. You are a hometown boy, D.C., DMV. You play for D.C. United, but you were not born here. Can you talk a little bit about your time coming from Senegal, about acclimating here, and how soccer played a role in your ability to find community, to find livelihood, and introduce yourself to the United States?
Yeah. Thank you all for having me here to begin with. I actually came to the U.S. from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So I left Senegal at the age of 6, lived in Tanzania, which is East Africa, then moved down south to Zimbabwe, and then moved over here. Ended up settling in Alexandria, and I went to boarding school out there, Episcopal High School. And that's where my journey in the States started. I was 15 years old. Soccer was kind of my in to the school, and from there I was just able to build a little path for myself, went to college, the Boston University, and I have been playing professionally ever since.
Gotcha. And how was soccer were you able to kind of create a community here through soccer, whether it be through maybe a youth team or certainly while playing for BU and then coming into the DC United program? How has that kind of introduced you to the United States?
Yeah, for the majority of my time here, soccer's been the biggest community I've had. I think as I got older, I definitely started to venture a little bit out of my comfort zone and befriending people who didn't know much about soccer. And today, my best friend knows absolutely nothing about soccer. He's a painter, and it's just weird how the world just brings people together. And I was so comfortable in my bubble that I wanted to stay around soccer. But I've learned so much about so many people, cultures, just from venturing out of that.
Gotcha. We're going to probably pick a lot at this idea of soccer, weaving different cultures in. Even people that don't know anything about soccer know that there's probably a World Cup coming up. And I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that as we proceed. But before we do, Dwayne, you had a heck of a career. There's no way to be shy about it. You've got, 81 caps for the Canadian men's team, 22 goals. You were 4-time Canadian Men's Player of the Year, Gold Cup champion, member of the National Canada Soccer Hall of Fame. The accolades go on. I asked this of Dewan in the last panel, but for those of us who can only imagine what it's like to represent your nation, not a club, your nation, on a huge stage, let alone score a bunch, let alone represent your nation so well, what is that like? And what's it like to feel pride in doing that?
Well, first of all, good evening and thank you for having me here. Literally, plane, trains, and automobiles right now. I just landed. I'm a little jealous, man. You look sharp. I want to be that sharp too, but I just came straight on. So, you know what? I actually did play for DC United as well. Captain DC United. Had a great time. Won a Open Cup here. Soccer really transcends borders and really breaks down barriers and has no culture, has no, it doesn't matter you're rich, you're poor. It's global game. That's why they call it the world's game. My parents migrated from Guyana to Canada. So I'm a first generation Canadian. So when you ask what does it mean when I wear the Canadian colors, I think of that journey that they had leaving their country, leaving the tropical islands of the Caribbean, of South America, and going to an unknown destination of Toronto. Cold. I could just imagine what that journey was like. You don't know what you're getting into. You're just here that a land of opportunity, better life for our family. And in Guyana at the time, there's political unrest. It's not the Guyana we see now. That's booming, right? There was a lot of political unrest, and for my family, they felt because my mom was in a position where she was pregnant, and this was the best opportunity they find was going to create, like I said, opportunities for myself and my brother. So when I wear that Canadian colors and I put my hand over the crest, I think of that journey. I think of everything they sacrificed to get me there. All the time spent, my dad had to wake me up when I was a kid to go to training, parents helping and pitching in for all those parents that take other kids. Those efforts are not in vain. Those efforts and kids like myself really appreciate and value, because it really takes a community to raise a child. And I know one thing, Dominic understands that very well, that we're not here on our own. We got here from the strength of others helping to support our cause, support us along the way in our journey. So when I hear that anthem, that's what I think about. I think of all the sacrifice, not only the people in my community made to get me to where I am in that point in time, but also the sacrifice I had to make as well. And the journey that I had to do, being a street kid in inner city communities, metro housing communities. I'm not supposed to be there, but it was the strength of my passion, my desire, and a strong community around me that fueled my passion and supported me is the reason why I'm there, and I don't forget that for a moment.
So every time you scored for Canada, this goes through your mind. Gratitude and also the struggle that it sounds like the beginning of your journey was, and also to get to that moment to represent with pride, represent your family with pride. That's powerful stuff. Thank you very much for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
I kind of want to double down on this idea of representing your nation. You are an ambassador for the Toronto FIFA World Cup presence. What do you see the World Cup potentially bringing Canada? We talked about this in our first panel when I was with the officials up here of how can you use the World Cup to boost businesses, to boost cultural exchange, to talk about welcoming different nations to your country, showing off your country. But you're seeing it from a slightly different perspective. You've been on that field, and you are now working with the folks making this happen. What opportunities is the World Cup presenting Toronto and Canada at large?
Well, when we look back at the '94 World Cup that happened in U.S., we saw the ripple effect that happened. MLS was created in '96, and look where MLS is now, right? So we're looking at this opportunity very similar. We have the CPL, which is the Canadian Premier League that's just started, another avenue for young professionals that want to play at the highest level. And I'm very proud to say we also have our professional women's league that just started this year. So not only are we have a professional women's soccer team, hockey team, basketball team, so it's very progressive right now in Toronto. And I think football, soccer, right, it's called football, the world's game, we're going to see it in a space where we've never seen it before, right? We've looked at our neighbors in the U.S., and I'm actually American as well, so I'm American too. But in '94, we've seen the impact, and we watched in awe and just, man, I wish the World Cup come here. Now it's here. I can only imagine we're going to have the same effect that has happened here in the U.S. And on a greater scale. That means, my focus is a legacy piece. So I'm making sure that when the World Cup leaves, what is it leaving behind? So mini pitches, accessibility, affordability for kids in similar communities that I grew up in is very important. And the game, better facilities, better refereeing, better coaching, and just all around more knowledge around the sport. Because we're not shy to say that I know in America the game has risen to a high standard, but it's still not in comparison to maybe NFL and maybe basketball. After this World Cup, I truly believe that will change.
All right. Well, in Canada, it's starting to raise quite prominently as well. Your men's team has whooped the United States a handful of times. That said, as we had in our first panel, the ultimate
Kobe's not here yet, is he?
No, Kobe's not here yet. You can talk trash when he arrives. These two apparently go way back, and not only that, you've played against each other. You've hung out, I would guess, a lot together playing
Great
MLS. Friend. Yeah. But this idea that soccer is rising in the United States and Canada, that we are not originally seen as big soccer nations. Mexico a little bit more than the U.S. and Canada. But that this game, this global game, is starting to make its way to the northwest part of the world, if you look at the map from the traditional sense. So, Monique, you've seen soccer from a global perspective. Mm-hmm. Granted, you were quite young when you were in Zimbabwe and in Senegal, but coming to America, Dewan shared a little bit about playing at every single level possible. Not the academy level, sorry. But from youth to high school to college to playing for an MLS squad, playing for a national team. How have you noticed soccer grow in the United States? Or has it been different than you originally anticipated it being when you came to America?
Yeah, it was definitely different than I anticipated it being. Everywhere I had been prior to coming to the U.S., soccer was the biggest sport. It's what everybody did. It's what all the little boys and girls did on the side of the road, at home, if you had the luxury of being able to play on a field. And so that was around all the cultures, 24/7. And then I move over here and it's, hey, we're going to go play basketball. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, we're going to go play squash. We're going to go golfing.
Squash?
Oh, yeah. I went to a very nice boarding school.
We played different sports growing up.
And then you're left with a handful of people who usually were not Americans that were like, all right, yeah, let's go kick the ball around.
Okay.
And so from that to where we are now, where it's growing in the U.S., and you're seeing boys and girls going out, running, playing, it's really nice to see how far it's come. Now, as we all know and we've said in this room, it's a long way to go. I've played in the MLS 11 years now, but for a 6-month stint, I played in Turkey. Just because I wanted to personally see what it was like to be a professional in a different country. And unreal.
That's a different environment.
It's a crazy environment where it's soccer 24/7, a little overwhelming. No privacy in whatsoever. Your life is under a telescope 24/7. And so I've seen both sides of it. It's nice to come here and be a professional where at the end of the game you can go home, you can relax, you can go out in public and have your alone time and still be private away with your family, where I've been in places where you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so do we want to get to that level? I think as professionals we do, but there's a lot that comes with that. But it's neat to see the trajectory at which it's going in, and this World Cup is really going to take it that next step to really put it up there with the biggest sports in the nation here.
I think it's fascinating when you talk about kind of the disparity between American soccer leagues, where, no, you can go out probably in the streets and not be mobbed by ultras or by fans. Yet, man, is the passion here in Canada and in Mexico as well. If you play well, people will come and support you. If you do not play well, people will come and boo you.
Oh, yeah.
We are all very into our sports and we live vicariously through it. But there might be a fine line of being a celebrity, but also still having your own privacy. Dwayne, did you ever encounter this, or were you ever overwhelmed by popularity? Or did you notice that playing in the United States, you still actually had a little bit of separation in a private life?
Yes, I mean, every city is a little bit different. Houston, because it's highly more Hispanic community, they're passionate about their football.
Yeah.
So there's times where, I would be shopping with my family and they're just, and then security has to come around and walk you through the mall and stuff like that. So DC, not so much. Toronto, the same. Hey, there's Dero. Hey, what's up? Kind of a picture. A couple fans stopped me outside actually on the way in. Actually stopped me 4 times. But
So DC a little bit.
But I want to touch on this as well. The fact that we have arguably one of the world's greatest players of all time. Come on, Kobe. Let's go. Come on, bro.
Pause. Welcome to the stage,
You always have to interrupt. Kill my shine. Take my shine. I was stealing my shine, man. So,
Dwayne, finish that thought, and then Kobe would love
the fact that we could sit here and have arguably one of the world's greatest players, not even in this generation of all times, come to the MLS after winning a World Cup and is here, just shows you where this league is. Regardless, are they paying him? Does he have a good salary? But he doesn't really need it. Lionel Messi doesn't, for you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking about Messi. Messi, he doesn't need that. But the impact of him coming here is kind of what Beckham, and I know Kobe could talk a bit more about this because he was actually there. Beckham, the impact that Beckham had, and all the global stars that want to come here. But I think Messi, what he's doing on an international global scale, he's moving the scale a lot more in terms of fans all over U.S. is Messi fans, and more people around the world in Europe are watching. Players, not only just fans, players are interested in MLS. Players are interested in the league. They want to know about the league, and I know Kobe could attest to this. When we play with FIFA Legends, I'm still amazed that these people know who we are. They watch MLS. They love the game. No different than how we don't just watch English Premier League. We watch Spanish League. We love the game. We watch Dutch League, Argentinian League. We watch football. If football's playing, we watch it because we're a true lover of the game. So to have someone of that caliber that our kids could watch, and our kids could go to the stadium and watch the greatest of all time play in our own backyard is something really special, and we really should be appreciative that we have a player of his caliber in our league that's actually going to be play in the final with another legend, Mueller.
That's right. For Vancouver, he's on now.
Correct.
For those of you who don't know, Thomas
My Canadian
Mueller.
plug in there.
There we go. My next segment I want to get on to is this kind of universal theme that we've been talking about sportsmanship and how the game can transcend the field. But before we do, Kobe Jones, you just joined us to this panel. You're obviously a soccer legend. You're sitting a long time. One of your foes, but also apparently good friends, Dwayne De Rosario. Can you give us a brief idea of how your career evolved alongside the growing game of soccer in the United States? Like, soccer over the past few decades has really started to boom. A lot of my friends wake up early to watch games in Europe, or they stay up late to watch South American games, now games in Saudi Arabia. It is truly the global love of this game has started to really hit the United States, and you were right there in the middle of this boom.
Well, first off, I want to apologize for my tardiness. I'm sorry about that, but you can't control planes and you can't control traffic. That's one thing that I've learned. As far as soccer goes, and just the growth of the game and being a part of it and seeing it, it has changed dramatically from. I'm sorry to say this, 40 years ago or so. It's quite.
I wasn't going to date
it, but it has gone from a situation of. Especially within the United States, if you wanted to see a game, you had to first find out what was playing because you didn't know what games were happening around the world. Then you had to basically find a local restaurant, be it an Italian restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, something that was going to have it, and pay to go into a back room for satellite. That was the only way you saw it. And to tell you now, and yes, the chuckles are there because now it's everywhere. It's on so many different platforms that you have the opportunity to see it everywhere. And that growth has continuously become more and more, and it has these, let's be honest, it doesn't just grow smoothly. It has these jumps, and this World Cup is a perfect example of an opportunity to have this game grow within the United States, Canada, and Mexico still too, with these jumps, these giant leaps, because all eyes are on the game. Within the United States, I would say that '94 World Cup was a very big part of it because that allowed us to leap and go forward. It brought people that were not interested in soccer to really say, okay, what's this all about? Let's see what all the hype is about. Why is everyone talking about it? And then you got businesses behind it. You got organizations behind it. You got people involved in it. And then people loved it. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, how do we continue to grow from there? And that's when we talk about MLS, and the MLS helps spur the growth. But the flashpoints, those major points, it's always the World Cup. And we saw it in 2018, I think, when the United States did not make it into the World Cup. There was still growth, but not to the level that you see when you are actually participating. And then if you have success, that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But within all of that, talking about a little bit of the growth of the game, but also the sportsmanship of the game, and I have to touch on it, like you said. Yes, we could be enemies at times, but as far as playing against each other, Canada, USA, playing against each other on different teams within MLS, but that sportsmanship does come through, because one of the things that, and D-Row has talked about it a little bit. We all love the game, and to a degree, we love each other as players and individuals, and we appreciate what we can do on the field. So that surpasses everything else. Yes, during the game, it's all about, hey, I want to win, but there is that after the fact. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go grab a drink. That happens all the time.
That hits at this idea that we've been exploring this entire time, which is this concept of good rivals. That your rival can push you to be the best version of yourself. Strive for excellence. You want to physically defeat Dwayne when you were playing against him. But after that, game respects game. The two of you can actually meet up, maybe jersey swap, and actually talk about how you are, or at least respect the idea that you are making each other better. Sometimes, though, I'm sure you both, Dominique, I'm sure you're currently seeing that it can go too far. That it can go, whether it be the athletes that take sportsmanship completely out of the picture, that can bleed into the stands, it appears in chants, it becomes insults on social media. Dominique, I'm curious, or if anybody has kind of a perspective on this, how can you, as an active athlete, and how can you guys, as legendary ambassadors of the game, really foster that good camaraderie, that good rivalry that you just talked about, to push back against kind of international, or at least club-to-club disrespect, and sometimes, might I say, hatred that can stem off the field as well?
Yeah, we, as athletes, ex-athletes, anybody, honestly, we have a platform. People are watching.
Yeah.
The spotlight is on us a little more when we're on the field playing, but think about parents. They set the example. And so as humans, we have to set the example for everybody. I think, yes, on TV, when everybody's watching, we have a big responsibility. How we interact with one another, how we react to frustrations. These are things that kids who idolize us, whether we know it or not, are doing when they're playing with their friends. And so I think continuing to have that conversation, one, within your locker room, and two, when you see it happen on the field, be able to address it in a way where it's not going to escalate the situation, just so we can put on something that's respectable on TV. I think it's tough because, yes, within the game, there's that gamesmanship of trying to get a little edge, and you might flop, you might roll around. And that's definitely something that kids are watching nowadays and doing. But I think that there's a line. I think flopping is different than punching somebody. And so definitely continuing to understand that while we are competitors, people are watching us, and when moments arise where we are tested, to understand what to lean on as opposed to kind of going off of emotion sometimes.
Dwayne, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost I hate to say it, but it's a double-edged sword, really, because you like that passion, you like that fan support, you like that fan engagement, and you really see most of the maybe negative side of the fan support more in the qualifying stages. At the World Cup, everybody's celebrating, everybody's happy. It's a different environment. Like having been to quite a few, it's just even the losing fans, they're like, oh God, you beat us. But in qualifiers, a different beast. It's a different animal. Kobe could talk about when we're playing in Central America, they don't make it pleasant for you at all. Absolutely at all.
To the extent you're comfortable sharing, can you talk a little bit about what the fan environments are like in different places that you play?
It's physical. It's brutal. It's threatening lives. Feel unsafe sometimes. I mean, if I don't think any other sport experiences what we experience as footballers playing in Central America, where you have 2 armed military vehicles in the front, 2 in the back, and you're driving, and all you're hearing stuff just hitting the bus left, right, and center. You're walking out to a pitch. They got their shields up, and stuff is throwing. Pee bags are throwing, and who knows what other bags are throwing, because they don't give glass or bottles because they're weapons. So this is real. This is not something I'm fabricating. This happens all the time, right? And but when they come here, it's like, oh, hey, welcome to our country. Way out the lake. Here's all the water you want, air-conditioned room, nice hotel. I mean, we can say a nice hotel, but it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, they're partying outside your hotel, crank calling, throwing fireworks is going off, explosions, bikes are revving. The list goes on
Different
and on.
type of home field advantage, isn't it?
Different type of, because it's life for them.
Right.
They realize that they'll do anything that it takes. I'm talking not just teenagers. I'm talking about grandmas. You're driving by the bus, they're giving you a finger. I'm like, hey. As an elderly little, I don't even know how to take that. I thought maybe she's saying I'm number 1. I don't know what it was, but you know, it's just that, and that's why I said double-edged sword, because those things, you look at it and it fires you up, because that passion. Yeah. Right? That passion and love for, like, they'll do anything to defend those 11, 12, 16 guys that you're going to compete with before you even step on the field. You have to deal with all that. And then, of course, in the stadium, the chanting and the songs, it's nonstop. So I love that environment. For me, my hair is growing just because I just know what that's like, right? So you thrive in those environments. But it's when the players now take that and turn it to a personal thing, that's when it becomes negative, right? They take it off the pitch and they take that battle. We have a motto: what happens on the pitch, stay on the pitch. No matter what it is, no matter how dirty it could be sometimes, it stays on the pitch, right? And I think, you know, and that's some of the good things of, I would say, VAR and the officiating nowadays, is they're reviewing stuff. And some people do some malicious stuff off the ball. In our generation, you get away with it. You have to get away with it. Like
Dominique's got to watch him. So.
Yeah. But in this time now, they review it, and you could get a red card, you know, and they review it, and you could get suspended. So these things, I think, has a positive impact for the game. But we also have to be very mindful, as Dominique says, is that as athletes, what we do not only on the field but also off the field, and social media and how we present ourselves, is very impactful. And it's very important that even the youth understand that, because nowadays, when global teams are looking at young players, they're no more looking at how they're doing on the field. They're going straight to their social media, and they're seeing how they presented themselves. So that, I think, our youth need to be very mindful of the impact of social media, more so than on the field.
Kobe, from a similar perspective, your takes on social media, how it impacts the game, but also how athletes can represent themselves, maybe on social media, maybe on the field, maybe in press conferences afterward, to send a good message, to encourage the fans and the passion of the fans, but also help people understand that there is a line. At some point it gets personal. At some point it's not about the team anymore. It's about maybe your nation or maybe yourself, or they've, my God, dug up some family history or something. Where can you, as an ambassador for the game, as a legend of the game, help maybe young kids or current athletes understand the power that they hold really transcends the field that they play on?
Look, social media is a different animal, and it's definitely going to be different, for Dominic as it is for us. Especially when you're talking to kids. A lot of the kids are like, "Wait, who are you?" And so you got to Google me to find out. That type of stuff.
Then they Google you.
But the way I put it is, we're talking about a lot of stuff here, and the big issue for me is I think it has to come from the individual. No one's stupid here. Kids aren't stupid either. So they know, like, if you're aggressive on the field, you're getting in fights, and then you go, you put an apology, oh, I'm so sorry, and you don't mean it. It's got to come from the heart. It's got to be how you handle yourself every single day. So I don't think it can just be just like, oh, I'm going to put out something on social media this week, and everyone's going to be like, okay, I did it. You believe me now? No, it's got to be your personality and who you are, and then we have to decide how are we addressing that, how are we raising kids, and how are we teaching kids within sports at a young age, and how that comes along. Now, that's something that, that I get involved in now, trying to help with that. Dwayne, I'm sure as well. All the present athletes got to do that as well.
Thank you for pointing to me at the
Yeah.
present athletes. My Sunday D2 rec team would love that.
You know what? That all matters too. Because guess what? There's kids out on those fields watching all of that stuff too. That's just extremely important. And every single day on how you handle yourself is what matters the most, rather than one social comment that you put out. Because they will see it. A kid will see you on social media if you're a star and just go, oh my God, okay, yeah, he was really heartfelt, and then he goes to a training session and you're, screaming at your teammate or screaming at somebody else in a negative way, or during the next game, they're not going to believe that. So for me, it's about how you handle yourself day in and day out, how we as athletes, we can be interactive with the kids at various times, and it's hard. It's not going to be just like one thing and everything's settled. It's going to be a consistent, a consistent process by us going out into the communities, to your local communities, to going to your teams. Yes, putting on social media as well. And then once the social media connects with what they see that you're doing as an individual, then all of a sudden that has more impact.
Right.
That's going to affect the kids a little bit more and say, you know what, I want to be like that guy. Where people like him. He handles himself well on the field. You get the backing from the parents, all those things, because it's not just one thing that's going to direct the person down this path. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you take that whole wave and ride it through.
So what you just kind of brought up about this understanding that your image represents a lot more than actually just who you are. It's how kids interpret you. It's how their parents interpret you. If you want a poster Kobe Jones up on the wall, hopefully mom likes Kobe Jones. Otherwise, it's a rebellious move.
Right.
There's this idea, part of this entire week is Sports Diplomacy Week in D.C. This concept that you are, as I just mentioned, a greater representative than just the athlete putting your boots on and going and taking the field, that you stand for a nation, especially when you play in international tournaments like the World Cup. But a lot of times we're noticing that athletes discover that power that they hold later in their career, a lot like financial literacy almost. Mm-hmm. That it's something that you realize near the end of your career is a power you hold, but maybe when you're young, you are far more focused on earning a paycheck or getting the next salary or getting a good contract or something. I'd be curious to learn when you really understood the power you held as an international representative, not just wearing your flag on your crest, but as a greater representative of the game from you guys. And then Dominique, I'd be curious if you've encountered that yet, in terms of, are there Is the MLS trying to work with young players to help them understand, hey, you actually stand for a lot more than just DC United. You stand for America. You have a very different background than a lot of folks here. This concept of sports diplomacy that we want everybody to understand, but sometimes it's quite intangible, frankly, because there are bigger priorities at the beginning. Dwayne, Kobe, when did you learn the power you held as a true sports ambassador?
Well, there's a couple of different moments. I'll give the one that was very personal. It was actually at a Galaxy game, and I was still playing at the time, and a mom, actually, it was towards the end of my career, but the mom came up to me, and she had 2 older kids, Latino. She comes up to me and goes, you know what, I didn't know much about soccer, but my kids liked you, and I want to say thank you very much because you kept my kids out of trouble because they loved what you did with soccer and they wanted to be like you, and we were not in a good neighborhood. They were surrounded by bad people, but because they liked what you did with soccer, they focused on their soccer and kept going with that, and they become wonderful young men to this day. And that she didn't know a thing about soccer, but she knew that it affected her, and their relationship and how they looked at me, So that was one of a big aha moment for me, in my late 20s, where I was just like, wow, I have, some type of I don't know how you put it, but I can affect people, in the right way.
You hold an impact,
yeah. Some type of impact, yes. And then later on, one of the post-career, most of us think, first off, what you said, we're going to focus on the money, and then, post-career, you're thinking, okay, once I'm done, what am I going to do? It's all over. But one thing that I've noticed is I'll say this within the Mexican community, a lot has a love-hate relationship with me. I guess you could say. I guess you could put it that way. And
if you go on YouTube and Google Kobe Jones highlights, you'll.
And a lot of the times that I deal with, Mexicans in Mexico, it's not a negative, effect that they come up to me and go, I hate you. It's always like, oh, we love the way you play. I loved what you did over those years. I loved how you played against us because you always played hard. You always gave everything and you never gave up. And that's one of those things where I was just like, my style of play and my thought process, coming from my parents and how to play a game and how to compete has left a legacy internationally, to people that in another country are still looking at me and going, hey, we're impressed on what you did and how you did it. And I say Mexico as the main one because that's where I get it the most, but it's been in various areas. I just came back from Germany, and there are people in Germany saying, we loved how you played the game, so that showed me that I was having an impact and didn't know it, had no clue that I was affecting people around the world. And I think that's one of the biggest things that athletes need to realize, and maybe we can make the younger ones realize it a little bit more, is that you will not see it. You won't see everybody that you're affecting. There's no possible way that you are, but you are having an impact on these kids, on adults as well, on various people. So try to handle yourself, and present yourself in the correct way.
Dwayne?
Kobe's being very modest. he's one player that has really motivated inner city kids to think that they could actually play a sport and play soccer in this country that wasn't being supported in the inner city. So watching Kobe play with his locks and all that, a kid that grew up with locks, multicultural community, kid growing up from the Caribbean, he was like our hero. So, and when you see these guys, it's like very similar of the impact that I had in my community. I played soccer for the passion and love till I was about 13, 14. I realized that I had to do this to make money for my family, for us to get out of our situation. So from a very young age, I realized that was my responsibility. So when you ask doing it for money, I did it for money because I knew I had it.
It's a job.
Well, it's not so. It's my duty because my parents, was one of us in 5 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment in Metro Housing. So I didn't like that situation. I don't think anybody really likes that situation. So I knew I had the ability and the skill set to help elevate us out of that. And when I started to when I went to Europe, actually AC Milan, I was at Milan, and Edgar Davids came up to me. He's like, "Hey, you're that kid from Canada." I was like, "What? Edgar Davids knows who I am?" I'm like, "Get out of here!" He's like, "What they want with a Canadian here?" And crushed me completely. And it's funny because he doesn't realize how much impact that had in me, such in a positive way.
Oh.
Because the reason why I say that is because he's right. What does AC Milan want with a Canadian kid? We're a hockey country, not known for soccer, and I wanted to change that narrative. And I took it upon myself to change that narrative. So he inspired me by that. So it's important that we have to understand that, okay, in a metro housing community, 5 kids in one bedroom apartment, you're not supposed to make it, So you either be the statistic or you rise above that and show everyone and inspire everyone that you can do that. And I think that's the responsibility we start to realize we have as athletes, is that we impact so many people, like as Kobe mentioned, moms, parents, kids, and along our journey, the most important thing is being authentically you. I think, and being real with your upbringing, and being real with who you are, and that's all you can do is play honest, right? And you will impact someone along the way, right? Man, woman, child, and I've had so much people along my journey that I've impacted. Some a lot older than me, some elderly, some really young. Even as Corey mentioned, like they have to Google me, and there's some kids that we walk like, "Hey, I used to watch you play." I'm like, there's no way you were even born when I was playing, right? But they're like, "Yeah, my dad talked to you, and I watched highlights about you, and you feel inspired that you touch so much people along the way in a positive way, and you impact so many lives, and which led me to start my foundation and help continue that initiative and use soccer as a platform, but not only to teach sport, but also to teach financial literacy and the impact that sport has, especially for myself. It was a real outlet to release trauma, right? And a lot of us athletes, especially the athletes that excel, is we use sport to release trauma. And that was our outlet. And we don't know how to express it. We don't know how to say it. But sport was a great vehicle for us to release all that anger and frustration we're going through. And I want to encourage kids to use sport in the same platform.
Thank you. Dominique, to wrap up this discussion, similar question, but speaking from the present athlete's perspective. Have you yet, and maybe the answer is no, have you yet grasped this idea that as your career continues to grow and hopefully continues to blossom, there are a lot of kids or there are a lot of parents watching you, and that means that your impact is greater than just a good move that you pulled on the field or a great goal you scored or, I don't know, a crunching slide tackle. Okay. How has your grasp of this evolved, and where do you hope to see it go?
I've only honestly recently started to really understand what platform I have. You think about these two gentlemen. You think about the saying 1 in a million, like what they've been able to achieve in their careers and international careers, that's 1 in 10 million. That's something that I have not been able to do. I have not been able to represent a country at the international level. So they're celebrities. I look at them, they're celebrities to me, to this day. And so for me, I'm like, I haven't achieved what they've achieved. So maybe I downplay how much of an impact I have on other people. But I think we can relate to people in so many different ways that, okay, some kid knows, or he's a professional right now, maybe I'm not in a national team picture. But, hey, look at this guy over here. He wasn't ever on a national team, but he has a platform. And, I like him because I think I could relate to him a little bit more. And so earlier in my career, I'll never forget the first time I really thought I made it was when I saw somebody wearing my jersey. And I got drafted toward the tail end of the draft. I came through the college system, and in preseason, it was basically a trial. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This is what I want to do, but I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. But the first day I saw somebody wearing my jersey, I was like, wow, this means a lot to me. And I never forget going up to the little kid and asking him, hey, why are you wearing my jersey? He's like, because you're so fast. And for him, it's just something so small that we take for granted, and that's me just running. And so from that moment, for me, it just really showed you that everything I was doing, people are watching. And so that really, and then I had a good couple years, and with that comes a following. But I'd say 4 years ago, when I was in Cincinnati, that's when I had, I connected most to the community and where I felt the most supported. Only because of, yes, I was doing well on the field, but all of my off the field things, really, people appreciated it. And people supported me in response. And so I realized, yeah, when you're younger, you have to focus so much on your craft because we have to, or else you're going to get cut. It's that black and white. But once you have established a name for yourself, I think there's no ceiling to what you can do to help the community and have the community help you. And so my ventures outside of soccer have really allowed me to connect to people in the community who maybe sometimes they feel like, oh, he's a celebrity, he's on a platform that I can never reach, but going down and a soup kitchen, do a toy drive, staying after games to talk to people, you make connections that they never thought were possible. And you give hope to so many of these little kids who idolize you, and now they look at you as, wow, he's actually human. And so for me, that's been something that I've carried along with me, and I continue to do so now.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work you all are doing. Kobe Jones, Dwayne DiRosario, Dominique Baggi.
Thank you.
And I believe I'm signing off for us right now. Thank you to the Reagan Institute, to the Rose Bowl Institute, to all of the panelists, and all of you who had to listen to me this entire time. One of the great athletes on stage is Kobe, completely. So I want to say that this week is packed with outstanding sports diplomacy events. You will continue to learn more about this. It's an important topic. Pay attention when it comes across your news feed. Pay attention when it comes across your Instagram or your TikTok feed. This is athletes representing their nations and their teams in the best form that they can. All right? Cheers, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Phenomenal way to end that. I think we want
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the program. Please join us in the Legacy Hall for refreshments.
Thank you.